The vast emptiness of space shattered as the first wormhole tore open. Through it emerged the UES Defiance, its massive silhouette backlit by the quantum distortion. Behind it came another vessel, then tens, then hundreds, an armada materializing in perfect formation. The sensors of every civilization within 16 parsecs lit up with warnings. 12,000 human warships had just entered the Galactic Commons territory, and no one had been expecting them. Admiral Kira Volkov stood on the bridge of the Defiance, her weathered face illuminated by holographic displays showing the formation of the Exodus fleet. Humanity's last desperate gambit filled the view screens, stretching farther than even enhanced vision could perceive. "All ships report ready status," announced Lieutenant Commander Ekene Okafor, his fingers dancing across the neural interface. "Wormhole stabilization complete." Volkov nodded grimly. "Send the broadcast on all frequencies, all languages in the database." "Broadcasting now, Admiral." The message was simple, transmitted in over 400 alien languages and dialects. "Earth is gone. We are the survivors. We seek passage and a new home. Any interference will be met with appropriate force." Aboard the diplomatic vessel, Olive Branch, Ambassador Riel Montclair watched nervously as the first alien responses began filtering in. The Galactic Commons had maintained a complex peace for millennia, disrupted only occasionally by minor border disputes and resource conflicts. Never in recorded history had a single species arrived in such numbers, with such firepower. "They're afraid," whispered Montclair's aide, Vashti Kapoor, analyzing the incoming transmissions. "The Acheronian Assembly is calling for immediate military response. The Elysian Accord wants to escort us to uninhabited space. The Meridian Collective is—" She paused. "They're transmitting navigational hazards and offering survey data of habitable worlds." Montclair's eyes narrowed. "Interesting. They see opportunity where others see threat." On the medical frigate Asclepius, Dr. Oren Nakamura stared at the alien vessel approaching under diplomatic protocols. The ship was biomechanical, with organic components embedded in crystalline structures, unlike anything humans had encountered before. This would be the first direct contact since the Exodus began. "Remember," he reminded his first contact team, "our objective is to establish medical compatibility protocols. Nothing more." Ensign Listra Davalos nodded, but her hand remained on her sidearm. "You still trust them, after what the Vraxians did to Earth?" Nakamura's expression darkened. "Not all aliens are Vraxians. We need allies now, not more enemies. Across the fleet, 12 million humans, all that remained of Earth's population after the cataclysm, watched alien worlds grow larger in viewport displays. Children who had never known a planetary sky pressed their faces against reinforced glass, marveling at the green-blue orb of Meridian Prime. The fleet's massive colony ships, each housing thousands of families, maintained position behind the protective screen of warships. In the depths of the UES Vengeance, General Alara Drace reviewed the fleet's combat readiness reports. "Time to weapons hot?" 17 seconds from standby, General," replied Major Keller, his augmented eyes glowing faintly in the dim tactical center. "Not good enough. I want it under 10. Ma'am, pushing the reactors that hard risks. Earth is gone, Major. 12 billion dead. I don't care about risks anymore." The silence that followed was broken only by the soft hum of the ship's systems. Across the galaxy, intelligence agencies of 100 species scrambled to understand the human arrival. Archives were searched for any reference to this militant species that had somehow developed wormhole technology capable of transporting thousands of capital ships. Archaeological teams were dispatched to study human artifacts from trade routes. Military vessels were quietly redirected to defensive positions, and in the void between stars, 12,000 human warships, bearing the last fragments of a destroyed civilization, continued their relentless advance into the unknown. 3 days after the Exodus fleet's arrival, the diplomatic delegation assembled in the neutral meeting grounds of Meridian Station. The massive space habitat hung in orbit around a gas giant, its rotating rings providing gravity for the dozens of species that called it home. Now it would host the most significant first contact event in galactic history. Ambassador Montclair stepped through the airlock, flanked by her security detail. Across the chamber stood representatives from the 7 major powers of the galactic. Commons, each alien species more bizarre than the last. The towering avian Corvaxi, the crystalline Tesserans, the amorphous Phaedon Collective, and others Montclair recognized only from ancient transmission intercepts. "Welcome to Meridian," spoke a melodious voice directly into Montclair's mind. The speaker was a Tesseran, their crystalline body refracting light in hypnotic patterns. "I am Concordance Harmonia, speaker for the Combined Councils." Montclair bowed slightly. "Ambassador Riel Montclair, representing Earth's Exodus fleet. We come seeking asylum and territory for resettlement." A ripple of communication passed. Between the aliens, some vocal, some telepathic, some through light patterns and chemical signals, the humans' neural translators struggled to keep pace. "An unprecedented request," rumbled the Corvaxi representative, his feathers bristling. 12,000 warships is not a refugee fleet. It is an invasion force." "We brought all that remained," Montclair replied evenly. "Our military vessels, our civilian transports, our agricultural arcs, everything that survived the Vraxian attack." The AI chamber went silent. Finally, the Phaedon Collective pulsed with bioluminescence. "The Vraxians are myth, a cautionary tale. They do not exist." "They exist," countered Dr. Nakamura, stepping forward. He activated a holographic projector showing images of the cataclysm, massive ships descending through Earth's atmosphere, devastating weapons reducing cities to ash, billions dying in hours. "They came without warning, without demands. They harvested our world and left it uninhabitable." The footage showed the final moments. 12,000 ships, humanity's combined military might and civilian evacuation fleet, desperately fleeing through hastily constructed wormholes as the planet behind them crumbled. The Tesseran's crystalline structure darkened. "If what you say is true, you have brought their attention to our territories." "Perhaps," acknowledged General Drace, speaking for the first time. "But we've also brought something else, the only weapons ever documented to harm Vraxian vessels." She nodded to Major Keller, who activated another hologram. This one showed Earth's last stand, a desperate battle above the ruined planet. Most human weapons had proven useless against the invaders, but several experimental systems had shown promise, managing to damage or even destroy Vraxian craft. "We offer an exchange," continued Montclair. "Safe haven for our people, and in return, we share our defensive technology and stand with you when, not if, the Vraxians return." Far from the diplomatic proceedings, the fleet maintained its defensive posture. On the bridge of the UES Defiance, Admiral Volkov received an urgent communication from the long-range scout vessel Horizon. "Admiral," reported Captain Zarek Imran, his holographic image flickering with interference, "we've detected unusual subspace distortions at the edge of the Meridian system. Pattern matches Vraxian signatures." Volkov's blood ran cold. "Confirmation? 87% probability. They're coming, Admiral. They followed us." Volkov opened a fleet-wide channel. "All ships, combat positions. This is not a drill." As diplomatic talks continued on Meridian Station, unaware of the approaching threat, the human fleet moved into formation for what might be their final stand. The Vraxian scout vessel materialized at the edge of the Meridian system, its biometallic, hull-absorbing rather than reflecting light, a patch of perfect darkness against the stars. Its arrival triggered every alarm on the human fleet's sensor grid. Single vessel, scout class, reported Lieutenant Commander Okafor aboard the Defiance. Consistent with Vraxian reconnaissance patterns before a major incursion, Admiral Volkov considered her options. The diplomatic team was still on Meridian Station, attempting to convince skeptical alien powers that the Vraxian threat was real. Now, evidence had arrived, but engaging would risk the fragile negotiations. "Deploy Strike Group Epsilon," she ordered. "Intercept, but do not engage unless fired upon. Let's see how our potential allies respond to actual proof." 5 human warships broke formation, accelerating toward the intruder. On the bridge of the UES Artemis, Captain Indira Malhotra watched the tactical display with grim determination. Weapons status? "Gravitic lances charged, Captain," replied her tactical officer, Lieutenant Farouk. "Quantum torpedoes armed." "Hold fire until my command. Communications, broadcast identification, and warning in all frequencies." The Vraxian scout, detecting the approaching human vessels, emitted a pulse of unknown energy, a signal to its distant fleet. Then it accelerated, moving with impossible speed toward Meridian Prime. "It's making a run for the populated world," growled Malhotra. "Targeting its propulsion systems. Fire." The Artemis launched its attack, joined by the other vessels of Strike Group Epsilon. Gravitic lances, humanity's most powerful weapon developed in the final days before Earth's fall, tore through space, distorting reality itself around the Vraxian ship. The scout vessel banked sharply, evading most of the barrage, but one beam connected, shearing off a portion of its hull. On Meridian Station, the diplomatic proceedings were interrupted as emergency alerts blared through the habitat. Hollow projections showed the battle unfolding at the system's edge. "You brought them here," accused the Korvaxi representative, feathers fully extended in a threat display. "No," countered Montclair, watching the tactical feed. "We warned you they would come. Now you see the threat is real." The Tesseran Concordance Harmonia vibrated in agitation. "Our combined defense fleet is scattered across 17 systems. We cannot mount an effective response." "But we can," stated General Drace. She activated her neural link to the fleet command network. "Admiral Volkov, this is General Drace. Request permission to deploy the Spear of Dawn." "Permission granted," came the immediate reply. On the outer edge of the human fleet, the massive dreadnought Spear of Dawn activated its main propulsion. Nearly twice the size of any other vessel in the Armada, it had been Earth's final desperate weapon, completed just days before the cataclysm. Now it moved ponderously toward the battle, its primary weapon system charging. The wounded Vraxian scout, still evading the human strike group, suddenly changed course, heading directly for the Spear of Dawn as if recognizing the threat. It accelerated to attack velocity, smaller weapons blazing. Captain Farron Kuzuki of the Spear of Dawn watched the approaching enemy with steely calm. "Targeting solution!" "Locked, Captain," replied his weapons officer. "Fire!" The dreadnought's spinal cannon discharged, not a beam or projectile, but a focused tear in space-time itself, a weaponized singularity that consumed everything in its path. The Vraxian scout, caught in the gravitational shear, was stretched, compressed, and then simply ceased to exist. The alien representatives on Meridian Station watched in stunned silence. "That," said Montclair quietly, "is what we bring to the table. The question is, will you stand with us when the rest of them come?" The Meridian Conclave lasted 17 days. Representatives from 32 spacefaring civilizations converged on the station, drawn by news of both the human armada and the confirmed Vraxian presence. The diplomatic chamber, designed for 7 species, strained to accommodate the influx. Ambassador Montclair had barely slept, moving from one negotiation to another. The human fleet remained in defensive formation around Meridian Prime, a fact that made many delegations uncomfortable, but gave undeniable weight to human arguments. The historical records are clear. explained Dr. Nakamura, addressing the assembled representatives. The Vraxians aren't myth, they're cyclical predators. They emerge, consume, and retreat approximately every 12,000 years. Your own archaeological evidence shows mass extinction events across multiple worlds that match this timeline. The Faden Collective pulsed with doubt. If true, why do we have no memory of these encounters? Because no advanced civilization has survived them, replied Montclair. Until now. We had the misfortune of developing interstellar technology just as their cycle began anew. Earth was likely their first target in this sector. In orbit above, the human fleet continued its preparations. The 12 colony ships, each housing hundreds of thousands of survivors, were positioned at the center of the defensive formation. Around them, the warships maintained constant patrol patterns, their sensors scanning for any hint of Vraxian activity. Aboard the Defiance, Admiral Volkov met with the command staff of the Meridian Defense Force, a hastily assembled coalition of ships from various Galactic Commons members. Your vessels are impressive, acknowledged Commander Ziltheron of the Elysian Accord, her translucent body glowing with bioluminescent patterns. But your tactics are concerning. You position your civilian ships in the center of your formation, using your military vessels as shields. Of course, replied Volkov. Those 12 ships carry all that remains of humanity. Everything else is expendable. The alien commander's light patterns shifted to what the translator identified as surprise. Your dedication to your non-combatants is unusual. Most species in the Commons prioritize military assets. Then perhaps that explains why your records show no successful defense against the Vraxians, countered Major Keller. You sacrificed the wrong things. After 2 weeks of tense negotiations, the alliance began to take shape. The humans would receive territorial rights to settle 3 uninhabited, but life-supporting worlds in the Meridian sector. In exchange, they would share their defensive technology, particularly the gravitational weaponry that had proven effective against Vraxian bioships, and commit their fleet to the defense of common space. On the final day of negotiations, as the treaty was being prepared, the sensors across 13 star systems detected a massive subspace distortion. They're coming, announced Captain Imran from the scout ship Horizon. Not a scout this time. Full invasion force, the Vraxian Armada, emerged from subspace. 37 massive harvester ships surrounded by hundreds of smaller craft. They materialized on the edge of the Meridian system, their black hulls absorbing light, their biological components pulsing with eldritch energy. In the diplomatic chamber, all conversation ceased as the tactical displays showed the approaching force. Fear rippled through the alien representatives. This is what destroyed Earth, said Montclair quietly. This is what we've been preparing you for. The Tesserine Concordance Harmonia vibrated rapidly, then spoke. The treaty is ratified. Humanity is now part of the Galactic Commons. Your fight is our fight. Across the system, the combined fleets of 12 species moved into formation alongside the human armada. Not as numerous as the Vraxian force, but united in purpose. Admiral Volkov opened a fleet-wide channel, her voice reaching every ship, human and alien alike. This is Admiral Volkov of Earth. The enemy before us destroyed my homeworld. They believe we are easy prey. Today, we prove them wrong. All vessels, battle stations. As one, 12,000 human warships powered their weapons and advanced to meet the threat. Space itself seemed to warp around the approaching Vraxian harvesters, their massive hulls defying conventional physics. Behind the protective screen of human and allied warships, civilian populations on Meridian Prime began emergency evacuations to underground shelters. The colony ships carrying Earth's survivors accelerated away from the conflict zone, escorted by a mixed guard of human and Elysian vessels. On the bridge of the Defiance, Admiral Volkov reviewed the tactical projections. The combined fleet outnumbered the Vraxian force, but simulations showed catastrophic losses likely. Conventional engagement will result in defeat, stated the tactical AI. Recommend alternative approach. Volkov nodded. Execute Operation Firebreak. Throughout the human fleet, officers received their updated orders. The formation shifted, breaking into 5 distinct battle groups, each adopting different tactical postures. The alien allies, integrated into the human command structure through hastily established protocols, followed suit. "They're trying to predict our movements," explained Volkov to Commander Ziltheron. "They did the same at Earth, countered every standard military doctrine we attempted. This time, we give them chaos." The first Vraxian assault came in the form of gravitational shear weaponry, invisible forces that could tear a starship apart from the inside. Battlegroup Alpha, led by the Vengeance, took the brunt of the attack. 3 human destroyers imploded, their hulls crumpling like paper. "Countermeasures," ordered General Drace aboard the Vengeance. "Deploy gravity anchors." Dozens of small drones launched from the surviving ships, generating localized gravitational fields that diffused the Vraxian attacks. The technology, developed during Earth's final days, had never been tested in full combat conditions. It worked. The next Vraxian volley dissipated harmlessly against the drone network. "Press the advantage," commanded Volkov over the fleet channel. "Battle groups Beta and Delta, execute flanking maneuvers. Gamma, hold position. Epsilon, commence Operation Sunspear." The Spear of Dawn moved into position, its massive singularity cannon charging for another shot. 3 Tesseran cruisers took formation around it, their crystalline hulls refracting energy to create a protective barrier. "Target largest harvester," ordered Captain Kazuki. "Full power." The weapon discharged, tearing a hole in reality that engulfed the Vraxian vessel. For a moment, it seemed the attack had succeeded. Then the harvester emerged from the distortion, damaged but intact, its hull regenerating before their eyes. "Impossible," whispered Kazuki. "No ship could survive that." Aboard the diplomatic vessel Olive Branch, now serving as a coordination center, Dr. Nakamura analyzed the sensor data with growing alarm. They've adapted, he realized. They studied the weapon that destroyed their scout and developed countermeasures. Ambassador Montclair turned to the Phaedon representative, whose amorphous form rippled with concern. "You said your species can form telepathic links with biological systems. The Vraxian ships are partly biological. We cannot interface with such alien biology," pulsed the Phaedon. "The psychic backlash would destroy our collective consciousness." "Not if we buffer it," interrupted Vashti Kapoor, Montclair's aide. "The neural interfaces we use for our translation systems, they could be modified to protect your consciousness while allowing partial connection." The battle raged across the system. Human warships employed unpredictable, almost suicidal tactics, ramming maneuvers, point-blank weapons discharge, deliberate reactor overloads. The aliens followed their lead, abandoning conventional military doctrine. For every Vraxian craft destroyed, 3 Allied ships were lost. But the humans pressed on with fatalistic determination, their communications filled with references to Earth, to revenge, to ensuring their colony ships escaped. In the heart of the conflict, aboard the Defiance, Admiral Volkov received the communication from Montclair. "The Phaedon have agreed to attempt psychic infiltration of the Vraxian command ship. They need to be within close range, protected by our gravitational countermeasures." Volkov studied the tactical display. The Vraxian flagship hung at the center of their formation, surrounded by layers of defensive vessels. "Getting them there would be a suicide mission," she said quietly. "I know," replied Montclair. "That's why I'm going with them." The UES Defiance plunged through the chaotic battlefield, its hull scarred by multiple impacts, secondary systems failing. Around it, the remnants of Battle Group Alpha formed a protective wedge, absorbing fire meant for the flagship. Each sacrificial explosion bought meters of advancement toward the Vraxian command vessel. In the ship's modified medical bay, Ambassador Montclair lay surrounded by Phaeton biomass, neural interfaces connecting her mind to theirs. Dr. Nakamura monitored the unstable connection, his face grim. "The buffer is holding, but your neural patterns are showing strain," he warned. "Much more of this and the damage will be permanent." "Earth is gone, Doctor," replied Montclair through gritted teeth. "What matters is that humanity survives, whatever it costs." The ship shuddered as another impact rocked its structure. Admiral Volkov's voice came through the intercom. 5 minutes to optimal position. Engineering reports the main reactor is reaching critical instability." On the bridge, Volkov watched as the massive Vraxian command ship grew larger in the view screen. Its biomechanical surface pulsed with eldritch energy, tentacle-like appendages lashing out to destroy approaching vessels. All remaining ships, "Concentrate fire on their defensive screen," she ordered. "Create a path for the Defiance." Across the system, the battle had evolved into dozens of smaller engagements. The Tesseran crystalline ships unleashed prismatic energy weapons, refracting the Vraxians' own attacks back at them. The avian Korvaxi vessels, impossibly agile, darted between enemy formations, deploying mines that attached to the biological components of Vraxian ships. And everywhere, human warships fought with desperate intensity, employing tactics that no rational military doctrine would approve, sacrificing themselves to save Allied vessels, using dying ships as projectiles, overloading reactors to create artificial novae. In the colony ships, now reaching the safety of the Meridian Wormhole Nexus, 12 million human survivors watched the battle telemetry with silent prayers. Children who had never known Earth clutched treasured photographs of blue skies and green fields, places they would never see except in archives and memory. The Defiance broke through the final defensive screen, multiple systems failing, its hull breached in 17 locations. Emergency fields barely contained the atmosphere. "We're in position," announced Volkov, blood streaming from a gash on her forehead. "Initiating docking procedure." The flagship's remaining maneuvering thrusters fired, bringing it alongside the Vraxian command vessel. Specialized cutting tools deployed, burning through the alien hull to create an access point. In the medical bay, the Phaedon collective surrounded, Montclair's prone form, their amorphous bodies pulsing in sync with her heartbeat. Through the neural interface, they extended their consciousness together, reaching into the biological components of the Vraxian vessel. The backlash was immediate and devastating. Montclair's body arched in agony as alien thought patterns flooded. Her mind, ancient, cold, hungry beyond comprehension. The Phaedon collective shuddered, parts of their biomass necrotizing on contact with the hostile consciousness. "What are they?" gasped Montclair, blood trickling from her nose. They're not. "Stay focused," urged Nakamura, adjusting the neural interface. "Find the control systems." Through the shared consciousness, Montclair and the Phaedon navigated the alien mindscape. They glimpsed fragments of the Vraxian history, cycle after cycle of consumption, worlds stripped bare, species harvested for biological material. The Vraxians weren't conquerors. They were farmers, and sentient species were their crop. There, identified the Phaedon collective. The central command node. With the last of their strength, they reached for it, attempting to sever the psychic connection that linked the Vraxian fleet together. The alien consciousness resisted, focusing its full attention on the intruders. Admiral Volkov's voice echoed through the failing comms system. "We can't hold position much longer. Main reactor containment is failing." "Understood," replied Nakamura. He looked at Montclair and the Phaedon collective, their merged consciousness struggling against the alien mind. "They need more time." He made his decision. Accessing the ship's engineering systems, he bypassed the safety protocols on the main reactor. "Admiral," he said calmly, "recommend immediate evacuation of all personnel to escape pods. I'm staying with the Ambassador and the Phaedon. Negative, Doctor. No one is being left behind. Volkov's voice was firm. If this ship goes, we all go. Complete the mission. In the merged consciousness, Montclair and the Phaedon finally reached the central node. With their combined will, they implanted a simple command, one that would resonate through the psychic network connecting all. Vraxian vessels, return to hibernation. The harvest is ended. The command took hold, amplified by the Phaedon's telepathic abilities and Montclair's human determination. Throughout the system, Vraxian ships began to power down, their biological components entering dormancy. The flagship systems, however, resisted. Its consciousness, older and stronger than the others, fought against the command. "It's not working on the command ship," gasped Montclair, blood now streaming from her ears as well. "It's too strong." Admiral Volkov checked the reactor status. 2 minutes to catastrophic containment failure. She opened a channel to the rest of the fleet. "All vessels, maximum distance from the Vraxian flagship. Detonation imminent." The Defiance's remaining crew hurried to escape pods, but Volkov remained on the bridge, ensuring the ship maintained its position against the Vraxian vessel. In the medical bay, Montclair made her final decision. "Full neural interface," she ordered Nakamura. "No buffers." "That will kill you," he protested. "It might save everyone else." She looked at the Phaedon collective. "Are you with me?" The alien consciousness pulsed in agreement. As Nakamura reluctantly adjusted the interface, Montclair's consciousness fully merged with the Phaedon collective. Together, they launched one final assault on the Vraxian mind, not with commands, but with memory. They showed it Earth, blue oceans, green forests, desert, sands, Arctic ice. They showed it humanity, art, music, literature, science, love, hope, defiance. They showed it what had been lost, what had been taken. The alien consciousness recoiled from the emotional onslaught, unused to such concepts. "Reactor critical," announced the ship's AI. "Detonation in 30 seconds. Admiral Volkov sent one final message to the fleet. "Remember Earth. Remember humanity. Make it mean something." The Defiance's reactor reached critical mass. In the final seconds before detonation, the merged consciousness of Montclair and the Phaedon collective unleashed everything they had against the Vraxian mind, not in hatred, but in understanding. This is what it means to be human. This is what you destroyed. This is why we fought. The reactor exploded, the antimatter containment field collapsing completely. The resulting detonation consumed both the Defiance and the Vraxian command ship, the explosion visible across the entire system. Throughout the Meridian system, the remaining Vraxian vessels, their controlling intelligence severed, drifted powerless. The surviving fleet, human and alien alike, moved in to secure them. 3 days later, in the council chamber of Meridian Station, the leaders of the Galactic Commons stood in silence as the final casualty reports were presented. 40% of the human fleet destroyed, thousands of Allied vessels lost, but victory at a terrible cost. General Drace, now the highest-ranking human military officer, addressed the assembly. Admiral Volkov, Ambassador Montclair, and the crew of the Defiance gave their lives to save not just humanity, but all sentient species in this sector. The question now is, what will we do with the time they've bought us? The Tesseran Concordance Harmonia stepped forward. The Vraxians will return, perhaps not for generations, but they will come again. Then we will be ready, replied Drace. Humanity has lost its homeworld, but we have found allies. Together, we will build defenses that no enemy can overcome. In the decades that followed, the human colonies flourished on their new worlds. The alliance forged in battle grew stronger with peace. Human gravitational technology merged with Tesseran crystalline engineering and Phaedon biotechnology, creating defensive systems unlike any the galaxy had seen. And in the heart of Meridian Prime, a monument was erected, a perfect replica of Earth as it had been, suspended in a gravitational field. Beneath it, a simple inscription in every language of the commons. 12,000 ships carried the legacy of humanity to the stars. Their sacrifice saved us all. We will not forget. When the Vraxians returned 200 years later, they found not isolated worlds ripe for harvest, but a united galaxy ready to defend itself. At the forefront of the defense fleet were ships bearing the emblem of Earth, a world destroyed but never forgotten, whose children had transformed the galaxy through their defiance. The Vraxian harvester ships entered the system, and the galaxy, no longer silent in dread, roared back in defiance.